Nada Afaf, and I'm a trainer and assessor in the area of business and leadership. Uh, I'll be co moderating and contributing to today's podcast. Thanks to all of you for joining in one more edition of ACSDRI's podcast. Today, we will discuss with Alan Taylor on the agile thinking to optimizing organizational sustainability performance. Just to give you a bit of an understanding about agile thinking is the ability to consciously shift your thinking when and how the situation requires it. Today, we will discuss with Alan on how to incorporate agile thinking for sustainability solution and how agile thinking can make an organization collaborative, flexible, and spontaneous. Ellen will also explain why sometimes leaders and organizations' strong urge to follow predetermined path fails to incorporate agile thinking. So let's start our journey towards agile thinking with Ellen Taylor.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you, Kanto. Yeah, it's an interesting background because I come from, as you've touched on, you give a great intro. I've done everything from being an engineer, as the avionics engineer in the Air Force, in the British Air Force. That was back in the 1990s, a very long time ago. But it was interesting sort of going through that and being keen to play in the software space. So then I became a software developer. As you mentioned, I traveled around, lived in Germany and Switzerland along my travels. And all of these things sort of play into who we become. And I look at the people in the room here, and I'm going to guess that a lot of you have gone on various travels in your lives. And I'm sure that you'll see that we bring something from everywhere that we've gone along our journey, and hopefully they all complement each other and add. And that's certainly what's happened for me as I've sort of learned from the variety of things from electronic engineering, doing some mechanical engineering, because I was also in charge of making sure the planes could fly. And taking that to IT, and then as I do now, is more coaching the human side. It gives quite a bit of a variety of perspectives on how we can all collaborate and work together. And I think that's quite a powerful thing that more of us, if we think about where we've been on our journey, we can actually bring a lot more of that to the table and help us all work better. Interesting journey, because I actually, in a strange way, I was doing Agile even when I was fixing planes. I look back at what I was doing there, and what we had was small teams. And especially, I worked on the Harriers, the jump jet, the one that goes up and down. Well, yep. We've got a modern American version, but when we'd go on exercise, this is back in the Cold War, and we'd go into little tents, and you'd have, your little hide, one plane, one team with all of the engineers. You've got this multi-skilled group. We could all do different things. We all had to be able to help put the bombs on the planes. We all had to be able to help get the engine checked. I mean, I can fuel planes, check the tires, check the engines, and even battle damage repair. I'm not even mechanically trained, but I was trained in battle damage repair. So it's those T-shaped skills, which means, for those of you who don't know Agile concepts of T-shape, it's more like you've got your 4 skills, but you've got all these other things which supplement it and complement it. And so we had our core purpose. We had to make sure the planes fly. And so we had a purpose. We had cross-team skills. We had just to get something done. And so when I look back at that now, I think, hey, that was Agile, but without anybody defining Agile. And Agile hadn't even been coined until 10 years later, in fact. And so I think that's the start of my journey. It was doing it without knowing I was doing it. About 10 years later, in 2001, 17, and I've got to put the racial sort of little slur in there, 17 white middle-aged men got together in a mountain in North America. And they went, hey, we can see the software development. There was very much a software originated from software. But the behaviors and the patterns that they were seeing are the same everywhere. But anyway, I'm digressing. They basically looked at way that software was failing, that the projects were going late, the quality of the results were poor, and they were often delivering things which didn't solve the problem that was originally expected because of miscommunication, misunderstanding. And so they got together for a weekend of brainstorming and came up with the Agile Manifesto, which is really, really simple. It's only like one simple statement, which is we are uncovering better ways of delivering software and by doing it and helping others do it. And that's the sum that sums it up. And then there's like a few other values in there: individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. That's it. That's the whole of Agile defined. And they just put that together because they saw that when people can work together better with a purpose
Right.
and work together with the client, you can get more clarity. And that's
So,
that's where it's all started at the moment. And it's changed a little bit recently. There's been with the troubles in the world and and financial stresses, it has changed a bit at the moment. But generally, we're focusing a lot on looking at the customer a lot more than we used to. Like, what is the customer wanting? How do we get that right?
yeah.
And how do we get cross department? And it's starting to do that really well. It's starting to look at organization. What does the organization trying to do? What are we really trying to deliver? And actually break down the silos. It's fallen back a little bit the last couple of years, but that's generally where the practices will go. Is like, how do we do that? How do we understand what we're supposed to be delivering and do it better and continuously improve the way that we're doing it? Which is, I think that's where it has a major win over other ways of doing it, because you try and do that on the go, not waiting till, oh, the project finished. What happened? By which time you probably forgot what happened like a year before. Another dimension to what one of your earlier questions was actually, which is about when did I really start to get
Yep.
it? I say Agile was defined in 2001. I didn't actually know that term for about another 8 or 9 years.
Mm.
But what I did learn around 2002 and 2003, after working in multiple traditionally managed IT projects and domains, which were very complicated to get around. It's about 2002, 2003, I started working with a new project manager or product manager, and he brought this whole design thinking mindset together. And at the same time, I was starting to explore some of the practices, which are the technical practices which Agile encourages, which were the things that were actually invented before Agile was defined by the people who, these 17 people. And they were things like test-driven development and continuous improvement. And those sort of design thinking, continuous improvement, understanding the customer. And what we did was this new product manager led me on the way to thinking, well, why don't we try and start using those? And I was the team lead. I was the architect for the project. And I was able to experiment and start defining these things. And it was great because I was working with, we had a couple of developers. I was in Switzerland.
Mm.
Most of my team was in Switzerland, but we had a couple of developers in India. This is before the days of video conferencing. So we didn't, communication was challenging. And it was amazing using things like test-driven development and the breaking the stories down into small pieces and having regular phone calls every day, that affect the early days of stand-ups. We were doing all of those machinations without knowing the coined phrase. We were using them from the same people's origins. So it was Agile, just without that one word missing. And we got that project delivered, no problem at all. The communication barriers with the guys in India, because we couldn't have good conversation. And everybody knows that I wrote the long documentation that explained everything. Everybody knows that's really difficult to understand. It's got nothing to do with language or anything else. It's just complicated, long documents are not easy to follow. They're horrible. I was writing them. And then I suddenly realized that the guys weren't looking at that. They were looking at the tests that I'd created. They were looking at what the outcomes were needed to be. And we're having those daily chats. That was where we were suddenly getting everything nailed and just flying through. And when that project was delivered on time without any problems, and it was relatively complex for its time, it was just, that was basically the clincher. I was like, I want to work this way again. No, I left that company and went to move to New Zealand. So I didn't see that type of working again for about 4 or 5 years. But when I did, and I heard the word agile, the two didn't click until I sort of worked out what the machinations were. And yeah, it was exciting looking back at how that happened. And then adding to that, when I started using it in New Zealand, it was almost a rinse and repeat of the same story. We'd been delivering projects with our separate silos in the team, and a new project manager came into the client. She said, "Do agile, these are the processes." And I was like, "Hey, I get this. This is what I was doing a few years before." And even the one team member who was not keen on those daily meetings and the fortnightly retrospectives and the fortnightly showcases, even he at the end of the project, when we finished it and delivered it perfectly, he was like, dragged me aside for a quiet little conversation. It was like, "Hey, Alan, can't tell the rest of the guys. Everybody knows I hate meetings, but I get it. This worked. Don't just keep it quiet." And I
So,
think that
so
was a
agile.
really big
So,
feature
do
for
you
me.
think agile helped to make much more coordinated team management and collaboration?
Absolutely. It's both of those things, and they complement each other because you enjoy doing it, you get that interaction, you can solve problems quickly and easily. And you can say, yeah, you get much better quality through that collaboration. Yeah, absolutely. It actually surprisingly widely used. And when I mentioned, you remember I mentioned earlier my Air Force career. When you look at it like that, it can be used more than we realize. Operations is a really good candidate. It's strange and difficult to believe, but even building sites can sometimes use some of the agile mindsets, their daily stand-ups, their idea of every week catching up and going, "Hey guys, what happened?" They can improve everything from safety through to building practices and communication. So you can use it even in a domain that everybody says, "No, you can't use agile," but you just bring the best bits out of it and then think, well, what do we want to take from this to get some outcomes? Um, it's growing. There's research around, there's two groups I follow quite closely. There's the Agile, what they call, there's the Business Agility Institute, which is based here in Melbourne. Um, and there's another one, which is a global organization called, no, I don't know what the organization's called, but they do the State of Agile report every year. And both of them do their own surveys on what's happening. And they are starting to show up when you follow those year on year, you can see it's starting to be used in more and more different industries and marketing, finance. Can't think of the others, but the list is quite long that are starting to say, "Hey, we're using it." Because traditional planning is a long way in the future. And that's one of the things that was called out even at day one.
So
And by
agile, so agile helps us to be flexible.
Yeah, that's right. Because we break it down and we think, well, what's next? And how can we know where we're going to. If you think of a metaphor of going from Melbourne to Sydney, okay, I know I'm going northeast. Okay, this road's here and I need to go a bit left. That's okay, but I'm still heading northeast. And so you'll still get to your destination. And Agile tries to do that, which allows you to navigate through the pains, the problems, and allow you to get back to quality. This is one thing I love, that when we're allowed to be flexible in that. When you see something not working, rather than using a fixed mindset of like, well, no, we just got to make that work, gives you an opportunity to go, "Hey, we've learned that's not quite right. Let's adapt that. Let's think slightly differently and go a different direction." So yeah, it gives a lot of opportunities for that flexibility. It changes a little bit over time, as I say, depending on what's happening. And there's a lot of variables in here, but a key one for me, from what I'm observing, and those reports, which I reference a lot because it's not just my own thoughts, this is surveys are showing this, is there's a desire for certainty, which is what traditional project management theoretically gives. But as we can see with a lot of big projects, when there isn't certainty on what can happen over time. So where that comes as a challenge for a lot of leaders and team members as well, but obviously leaders are the people who make the decisions, is, hey, I want certainty. I can't have my estimates made in story points. I can't have all of this being, oh, it's a small, a medium, a large. I want the plan broken down for the next 2 years. Well, that's where Agile was trying to go against that really detailed 2 year plan, because by the time you get there, a lot of things will have changed anyway. But people feel that that's certain when you get a very detailed Gantt chart. And it's that feeling of certainty, even though reality, if you look at projects, they don't come out as we plan, even though we feel certain. So I think that's the biggest problem with humans. We're not good at managing that lack of feeling of certainty and adapting through this change and giving people trust. It's a big one. You've got to trust people to say, hey, this is where we're going, and get that responsibility. And when we
So,
get scared,
so
we
basically, you are telling that agile makes us flexible, but that flexible makes us uh, too too much flexible, and then people want focused straight line, and that people are less risk taker, because when you are flexible it is becoming risky, and people are risk averse, and people want to stay in one single line, and that's time. And even agile has a great advantage, so that creates a problem in adapting agile, embracing agile, isn't it?
absolutely, very well put.
Okay,
And obviously,
Anand.
it's not the only
Mhm.
challenge, but I would say it's the biggest single one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is being done to address these challenges? What do you think they came up with?
It's
Yeah.
I think that's what we've got to look at, is where are the opportunities. I think first of all we need to remind ourselves that that's what it's supposed to do. Its whole intent is to fix it as it goes along. So rather than walking around using the metaphor of a broken leg, rather than having a broken leg and just trying to limp along with crutches for a long time, let's fix it early. Or better still, if we can see the fracture before it even cracks, opportunities are to improve or fix things early is where we want to try and go. Um, and I think obviously every leader is different. So some might be happy if we can demonstrate to them, hey, let's just try this. Let's go for that. But there's also various um, frameworks which are being considered around, and I suppose I'm moving into sustainability here, but when we look at where the challenge, actually, no, I'll stay with the agile space for a sec. One of the things that's picked up in the latest surveys, which were published nearly 12 months ago now, the next ones will be coming out soon, was leadership is a challenge, but Agile offers amazing opportunities for leaders, especially in innovation and adaptability. So that shows that's where there's a big opportunity. And so when we also look at what's happening in the world, and I'm trying to just find leverage points here. I'm
Yep.
thinking we've got things like the awareness of social justice and environment, and we need to be adaptive, but we also need to be caring for more different types of thoughts and different people more than we used to. We've got that combined with um, the awareness that that actually helps organizations. So build, and I say there's awareness as well that leadership can be improved. So there's opportunities there to grow leaders' flexibility and understanding the problem rather than understanding that everything has to have a mechanical or electronic or computer solution to everything. We ourselves are holding ourselves back. And where there's certain things that have been done throughout the last couple of years which have demonstrated that. And one of them was actually staying in the IT space. It was Microsoft did a survey in 2021, which showed that actually leadership is actually the biggest roadblock. Well, let's try and unlock it. When we see those messages, let's do that. Now I'm going to go into a sort of a parallel universe here, and that's around, and these lessons can play on each other because the world is not as simple as just IT or just project management. With the Sustainable Development Goals, so for anybody who's not aware what they are, they're created by the United Nations back in 2015, trying to look at what can we do to make the planet better for people, the planet, environment, food, business, everything. And and the progress has been quite slow. So a bunch of psychologists and business people, mostly but not completely based in Sweden, back in 2000, they went, hang on, this is not working as it should do. Why aren't we progressing faster on looking after our planet that we all want to live in? They came to the same conclusion that Microsoft came to a year later, which is, hey, let's unlock ourselves. So what we've got is growing movements in these different spaces, like people like Microsoft, organizations like Microsoft, and some research which was done by Deakin University. I can share that if we wish. And that's research from the IDG, the Inner Development Goals Group, which is connected. They're all showing the same thing. Here's a load of tools. Here's how we can improve as leaders and create that opportunity. We unlock those things in one way, we will unlock them in all of the others. It's almost like a magic key. So that's where there's a massive opportunity for us to see all of these possible win-win-wins. Look after the planet, look after Agile, look after business delivery, because we get better, fast delivery. And there's where the opportunities are. I'll go for the practical one, the one that can be a bit more demonstrable, I guess. But I'd like to share a little bit on some research I did, which also came up with figures which prove the fact. Working for one of the organizations here in Australia, which is actually it's a UK-based global corporation, they wanted to do leadership growth. Perfect candidate. Let's grow our leaders. Let's give them a challenge which will help them grow, and also identify people who want to be, really are going to stand out. We think they are. They look good. Let's put them in this program and let's see how that goes. And obviously we can accelerate promotion accordingly. Wonderful leadership development growth program. I was invited in to be the coach for that, which was 6 teams of 7 people here in Australia, another 6 in UK, another 6, another couple of countries. But I just obviously was Australia focused. It was a wonderful opportunity to see people blossom in this challenging environment, because it was a leadership development program which was intended to provide innovative solutions, working with startups in the sustainability goal space, using Agile as the framework that they were going to use to test them and challenge them. It was brilliant because you've got people from all over the industry. It was in the medical world, so you had doctors, but you also had marketing, you also had project managers, risk managers, all of the different capabilities. T-shaped skills in these teams trying to work with, well, they did work really well with their startups, and using Agile as the framework to help these startups amplify their passion and their mission. So with that program, what you ended up with was a bunch of people learning and using Agile to break down barriers, equalize everybody in the team. They were all leaders trying to go up, but some were here and going up here. Some were already there and trying to potentially go up higher. So we didn't have everybody at the same level. We had all of this team with different people, different levels, different skills in each of these teams of 7 people, and bringing out the best of each other. It was a wonderful experience seeing them stretch, but deliver. Using Agile, they were able to do it in a new way and think differently, and see sometimes there were barriers in the teams, but see them wanting to break through them. They were demonstrating all of the challenges that were mentioned, but moving way past it. What you ended up with was an opportunity for the business to have better leaders. They all learned out of it. Even if they don't use Agile next, they've grown, but they've used Agile as the mechanism. Some of the teams definitely were coming back to us after the program and saying, hey, can you be my coach for my team? Because we want to start using this mindset. We loved it. We can make us more efficient. And I saw those barriers coming down. I saw teams where everybody suddenly had more power and therefore more motivation, which meant that they could solve each other's problems and help each other out more than they did before. So that being embedded in teams like marketing inside the organization. You got sustainability was now being embedded because these were people from all over the organization who'd got a taste of what doing something good for the planet actually meant. So you got all of these wins. It was like better leaders, more sustainability embedded around the organization, and a bit of an agile flower being sort of planted all over the place, which was great. That was one example. But I also did some research with an international group between Canada, UK, and obviously myself here, where we tested a theory. Most of the time when we're trying to learn and grow, we get sent on a course. I'm sure you've all been on a course where you've gone, yeah, this is exciting. I want to learn this. You finish the course, you go, yeah, I know that now. But then you don't get round to using it, or you use it so late you've forgotten what you've learned, and so you're stuck. We went through a different process, and we think, hey, that's probably not the best way of getting people to become agile and sustainable around the country. Actually, we didn't use agile. Agile, I'll come back to that. I'll loop back to that in a sec. We're trying to become more sustainable around the organization. And what we found was that, well, our hypothesis was training is going to help people, but helping them think differently, overcoming those mental barriers that I mentioned, would do more. You want both. Ideally, you want both. You need knowledge, but you also need capability. So we wanted to test that. So we did, like any good scientific research, we had 2 control groups, which did just the training, and we took the other groups to do just the coaching. And at the end of that, there was no growth in the capability of thinking differently from the people who just have the knowledge. They weren't actually applying what they'd learned. The ones who went through the program, the coaching side program, where we unlocked that inner self, they ended up with a 9% cognitive uplift. 9% is a huge number to be thinking better and think. We saw them overcoming barriers in their organization, working across the organization better, bringing in new sustainability initiatives within their organizations. Where did Agile fit into that? It wasn't defined into it, but what we ended up creating was a process which, if you looked at the diagram, you'd go, that looks like Agile. So it's like looping back to what I said about what the RAF when I was in the British Air Force. A lot of the things that we do are the same. We just don't use that name. This is a psychologist, a doctor of psychology leading it from the academic front in the UK. The rest of us all coaches. I didn't use the word agile once. It just ended up being like a loop. Get everything set up, bring the leaders on board. That was one of the big things. The execs were on board. The execs physically spoke to the teams to say, hey, then go along and do a little loop. How did we go this last few weeks, guys? What did we learn? Let's go along. How do we do that? Do our retrospective and go on. And we did that. So it was effectively agile. But seeing that mindset shift, embedding it in the organization, is another way of doing it. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. So basically, you're telling that in Agile, there will lots of to and fro will be there, and that is acceptable.
Yeah, it's the thought process, the mindset behind it. Yeah, let's continuously improve. How can we do that? And let's unlock those doors to be able to collaborate better and think better and solve those problems better. Yeah. That's a very difficult question to answer well. So I'll give you what I can, because obviously every leader is different. If you've got Elon Musk and you want to compare him to Richard Branson, both multi-billionaires, got lots of money, got plenty of companies, both trying to fly in the air, actually both trying to go to space. So there's no one answer, but what I do say is we can look at what has been done so far. That's a good start. Whether you like him or love him or hate him, Elon Musk with his Tesla and with SpaceX, they use Agile in their space. So it demonstrates that there's valid point in doing that. Obviously, the sustainability bit gets a bit shaky when you're talking about some of those things. But where that comes in is it's playing with what is reality. And when we start to bring into the sustainability space, there's a company called Interface, which is an American carpet company, but they are global and they do operate here in Australia as well. Back in 1994, I think it was around there, their boss suddenly realized, let's be sustainable. And so, although he wasn't using agile techniques, he was using practices which are similar to lean, which Toyota use, and that is it can fit really well with agile way of thinking. So, what are we trying to achieve? How do we become better at doing it? They became carbon neutral in 2019, meaning even their carpets, they recycle, they use clean as best products they can, and they do all sorts of other things. But they've done it by embedding it in the whole organization. Everybody can play a part. So although that's gone off a track from just agile per se, it's showing that going green and doing things can be done successfully. What we've also got to bring agile in there is, well, we can do that in small bites. Let's think one of the many things about agile is you can take risks because they're smaller, and you can put safety guards around them. And that's where there's opportunities around initiatives in organizations where they can go, hey, let's just try getting everybody on board, and then everybody will put the rubbish in the right bin. Or let's get everybody on board and they can come up with some innovative experiences. Actually, there's a good one. I hadn't thought about this. One of the things a lot of IT organizations do is what you call hackathons. I don't know if people here are aware what a hackathon is, but the general gist is you allow people to come up with ideas. What's the idea? What idea can you all come up with? And you get people to put their ideas in. They could be from somebody from marketing comes up with something. How about if we had that little button on the website which does something, I don't know, make it up. Then you have the hackathon, a couple of days where the rules are really broken down. Let's just do this. Let's try it. You allow the innovation to spark. There's opportunities to do things like, and that's very much an agile tool. Bringing those sorts of ideas into organizations for sustainability initiatives. Hey, what do you think we can do with our, I don't know, our box over there that we sell? What can we do with that? Because we don't know, we've got no ideas. Let's bring everybody's initiative in and engage them, because that's also very satisfying for the employment. Sorry, I'm going to digress. I'm going to give another example if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
It's about finding the happiness between all of these things. So again, it's not agile specifically, but it demonstrates an example of where this type of mindset can really pay a big win if it's paired with agile. There's a company here in Melbourne, which 18 months ago, they decided to go green. So they are gas and electric fitters for homes. So they'd fit your gas cooker, they'd fit your electric or gas heating. 18 months ago, they went, nah, we're now going electric. We're going to help people get immediate return on investment from getting rid of their gas and putting in electric. Just to give you an idea, it might cost $40,000 to do that, but they can find funding and set it up in a way that once you've done it, once the work is finished, you'll get your return on investment immediately. They used to have a cost to their employment of it used to cost them about $15,000 for every employee that they wanted to find and get on board. Now, because they have got this different culture and this different product, costs them nothing, because people are trying to get in their door. Now, if we've got this world where organizations are engaging their people, whether Agile is another motivator with Agile, a well-run Agile world has got very high employee satisfaction. You've got innovation, you've got ability to solve problems quickly. This is really good for an organization. Bring in the fact that you've got this other level which makes people really want to work there. That's a really big motivator for organizations to go down that route if they're brave enough to try. but the risk can be quite small because you can start small with Agile and scale it as you need.
So
I
basically,
don't know.
you're telling me that
Is that giving
no,
you
that's wonderful.
an idea?
So wonderful thing. So basically, you're telling that agile, embracing agile will help us to be flexible, and also we can scale up things from small to big. And because we do not have any fixed paths or fixed focus sort of thing, as we go, as the demand environment demands it, we can change and uh, flexible and adapt with the thing that will. And also agile helps to integrate and collaborate with all the team members, and then everybody pull in their ideas into the project, and as a result everybody became that, okay, the main project where the idea is implemented, it is my bit of idea is there, your bit of idea, so everybody feel the ownership of the project, and that makes the organization much more cohesive and integrated, and employees are motivated. So in that way, agile plays a big important role in make a like a glue in the organization, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great way of summarizing it, and I love that glue. It is.
Yeah, yeah,
It's glue, but obviously, like a lot of words, it can be ambiguous. Glue can mean you're stuck, but no, it's pulling it together and it's holding
yeah,
it
yeah,
together in
yeah,
an effective way. Absolutely. And
yeah,
when
yeah.
I've seen that in organizations, and I've seen that happen with Agile, where I've even seen, I just digressing on that, how wonderful that glue can be. There's an organization I helped convert to Agile in their software development. And they were using, as like a lot of organizations, they've got software developers from different consultancies. Now, because of the usual constraints and rules and regs around the consultancies, it would normally be very complicated to get them to work together on the same piece of code. Well, we said, no, come on, let's get them all here together in the office for 6 weeks where we help them adapt. Oh my God, we went from a group of people who didn't want to even talk to each other. Within just a week, we'd got amazing amount of fun and, people enjoying themselves. And the project was delivered in less than a third of the time it would normally take, less than a third of the budget, less than a third of the stress. With a happy bunch of employees, it was just a perfect
because
example of
everybody's because everybody is self-motivated and their productivity has a high. Okay, so they're giving high productivity, so obviously there is no wastage in that way in their manpower and anything. Yeah.
Quick question, like in this agile transformation, do we need to create team or team leaders, or like how does it work? Being a team leader, I can do that, or do I need to engage people from outside to have some, inputs from a fresh, start or something like that? And is it going to be like some sort of budgets allocated towards that, or what?
Oh, it's a great question. Oh my God. It's a difficult one without knowing the context because every situation is different. And I think that's another one of the things that a good agile world is cognizant of, is aware of, that there isn't a single solution because every situation is different, which is traditional management sort of tries to think that everything can be templated and it can't. I'm generalizing there, but I know it's not quite true. I would say that you can start. What generally happens from what I have seen when people try and do it on their own without the knowledge and experiences, they take the practices and the processes, which are great. They're good starts, the stand up, the retrospectives, and doing that with their team. And team is definitely important. It is a team sport. Agile is definitely a team sport. The challenge that usually happens that I've seen when I've gone into diagnosis or help teams like that is that if the right following a process of, oh yes, we've got a daily stand up, yes, at the end of the 1 or 2 weeks we do a retrospective, it becomes more mechanical and not very thought provoking. So quite often help is needed to to loosen people up a little bit, to get people to feel comfortable saying, "Hey, I have a problem." Because quite often we get very used to, and I don't know about your environment, but more often than not, I see organized teams where it's, "Oh, but I daren't show that I'm struggling, or I daren't show that I've got a solution which is different than theirs, but they won't agree with me." These are the sorts of human challenges which we often have. So if we just go through the process, we will not overcome those. But if you're a great people leader, then or there's somebody who can do that within the team. Sometimes you've just got one character in the team who's just great at unlocking people. If you can do that, then yeah, give it a go on your own. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you in that point, because um, we have faced like some problems with few people. They don't want to come out of their shells, kind of, even though we are open for any suggestions or as per se, let's say, bring up some new ideas, give us some suggestions, you know, talk about any difficulties you are facing, any objectives that we left behind or we need to achieve, or because whatever job scenarios we are working within, like in a business setup, so we all have our goals. Basic purpose is like to make our clients happy, or whoever the clients are, could be anyone, or maybe it could be a service industry, it could be something else. So what I was facing is like most of the time people are just there as they look at this business environment or working space as a place of just earning something to make both ends meet, rather than to be acceptive, or maybe expressing themselves in a way where teams can work together. So
Yeah.
leaders are there to help them around wherever they needed any help, any suggestions, or anything. But I think teams could or should work well if there are open-mindedness and acceptance towards each other. So that's what, like, I face. It's That's why I asked the question, like, do we need to bring up new ideas with the new team members, or someone to hire from outside where people feel more comfortable? Maybe I'm not sure. I've seen these things within the team.
It's very sorry. Yeah, that's a great point, and I love your openness there and sharing that. Thank you. I'll just give it a little taste of some of the things I've seen. One of the teams I worked at, I was called in and to be the new team lead or scrum master. All I did was turn up. The previous lead was great at being a business analyst, but they weren't good at being the lead. So they tried to be too mechanical, and that set the scene. The team would felt they were being watched all the time. So I just turned up and just asked them a few questions, and the transformation was almost immediate. On the other hand, it's sometimes backfired. Sometimes I've gone like that and they've wanted more structure, and I've needed to learn myself to change to fit with them. So there's no single bullet. But I've also been in situations where it's just a question of making people feel that and I shouldn't use the word just, because that makes it sound easy. It's not. It's helping people feel that they can be safe. And that might need some playing around with some psychological games, or just using a lot of fictional type things. That's one of the tools that you can use, little imaginary games, playing characters, just to get people outside the box and feel that they can be themselves. That might be another way. But yeah, there's a lot of areas. If you have a look around for agile games, they might give you some ideas.
Yep, I agree with you. That's it. Thank you, Alan. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan, for educating us on agile thinking. So, to be agile, we have to do test and learn and freedom of thinking, not being 100% self willing. Bring sense of collaboration in the team, and we have to reinvent different ways to achieve efficiency and cannot afford to be servant of one rigid system. We have to optimize everybody's participation in a team. Thanks, Ellen Taylor.